Long before photographs or airplanes, people crossed deserts and seas just to stand before structures they could hardly believe were real. They traveled for months, sometimes years, enduring heat and storm and the slow grinding passage of distance, all to witness what others had described in breathless, almost reverent tones. These were the 7 wonders of the ancient world, monuments so extraordinary that even the word wonder seemed too small a vessel for what they contained. Tonight, as your body grows still and the weight of the day lifts gently from your shoulders, we will walk among them together, one by one, and feel the warm stone beneath our palms. Welcome to Let's Learn While You Sleep. Tonight we find ourselves standing at the threshold of a very old story, older than most nations, older than most languages. The story of 7 structures that the ancient Greeks chose to represent the pinnacle of human achievement. The list we know today was compiled over centuries, shaped by travelers and scholars writing in the Hellenistic period, roughly the 3rd and 2nd centuries before the Common Era. The earliest known reference to such a collection comes from the historian Herodotus, writing around 450 BCE, though the canonical list was refined by later writers, including Antipater of Sidon and Philo of Byzantium. These were not simply large buildings. They were declarations, carved into limestone and marble and bronze, that human beings could dream on a scale that rivaled the landscape itself. Of the original 7, only one still stands today. The Great Pyramid at Giza, resting quietly under the Egyptian stars as it has for more than 4,500 years. The others have returned to dust and memory and scattered stone. And yet, in a way, they have never truly vanished, because the awe they inspired still lives in every account that survives. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and allow these ancient wonders to unfold in the quiet theatre of your imagination. We begin where any journey through the ancient wonders must begin, in Egypt, on the Giza Plateau, where the Great Pyramid has stood since approximately 2560 BCE, during the reign of the pharaoh Khufu. For more than 3,800 years, it was the tallest structure ever built by human hands, originally rising to a height of roughly 146 meters, before weathering reduced it to about 138 meters. It was constructed from an estimated 2.3 million limestone blocks, each averaging around 2.5 tons, though some of the granite blocks used in the internal chambers weigh as much as 80 tons. The precision of its construction still astonishes engineers today. The base is level to within just a few centimeters across its 230-meter span, and its sides are aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west, with an error of less than 1/12 of a degree. How the ancient Egyptians achieved this remains a subject of serious scholarly debate. Various theories propose systems of internal ramps, external spiraling ramps, or even water-lubricated sledge paths, but no single explanation has achieved universal consensus among archaeologists. What we do know is that the workforce was not, as popular myth long suggested, composed of slaves. Archaeological evidence from the workers' village, discovered near Giza in the 1990s by the Egyptian archaeologist Zahi Hawass and his colleague Mark Lehner, reveals that the laborers were organized into skilled teams, fed well on bread and beef and beer, and likely rotated through seasonal work schedules tied to the annual flooding of the Nile. These were proud workers engaged in a national project of immense spiritual significance. The pyramid was not merely a tomb. It was a vessel designed to carry the pharaoh's spirit into the afterlife, a staircase to the stars. Inside, 3 known chambers exist. The subterranean chamber cut into the bedrock below, the so-called Queen's Chamber in the body of the pyramid, and the King's Chamber, which holds a granite sarcophagus that was placed there during construction, too large to fit through the narrow passageways afterward. And tonight, as you rest, picture the Giza Plateau in silence, the limestone glowing faintly under a blanket of ancient stars, and feel how quietly 4,500 years of history can settle over a sleeping world. Now let us travel east across the Sinai and the long stretch of Mesopotamian flatland to the city of Babylon, a name that has echoed through history like a deep, resonant bell. Here, according to ancient accounts, rose the Hanging Gardens, one of the most mysterious of the seven wonders, because unlike the others, we are not entirely certain they existed at all, or at least not in Babylon. The classical descriptions are vivid and beautiful. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, writing in the 1st century BCE, described terraced gardens rising roughly 20 meters high, layered one above the other like a green and flowering amphitheater, watered by some ingenious system that lifted water from the Euphrates River far below. He attributed them to a Babylonian king who built them for his homesick wife, a woman who longed for the green mountains of her homeland. Later tradition identified this king as Nebuchadnezzar II, who ruled Babylon from approximately 605 to 562 BCE. And yet, here is the puzzle that has occupied scholars for generations. No cuneiform texts from Babylon itself, and there are thousands, make any clear reference to hanging gardens. The extensive excavations conducted at Babylon, particularly by the German archaeologist Robert Koldewey between 1899 and 1917, uncovered magnificent architecture: the Ishtar Gate, the Processional Way, the Great Palace Complex, but nothing that conclusively corresponds to the gardens described by Greek writers. In 2013, the Oxford Assyriologist Stephanie Daly proposed a compelling alternative hypothesis. She suggested that the Hanging Gardens were real, but that they were located not in Babylon, but in the Assyrian city of Nineveh, roughly 300 miles to the north, and were built by the king Sennacherib around 700 BCE. Daly's research draws on Assyrian palace reliefs and royal inscriptions that describe elaborate garden terraces and a sophisticated aqueduct system that carried water over long distances. Whether the gardens belonged to Babylon or Nineveh, the vision they represent is the same: an extraordinary act of engineering in service of beauty, a dream of green abundance rising from dry earth. And perhaps that is why they have endured so powerfully in the human imagination, because we have always wanted to believe that even a desert can bloom, given enough ingenuity and enough love. Let that thought rest with you now, like cool water on warm stone. From the green terraces of those legendary gardens, we turn our gaze westward now, across the Aegean Sea, to the coast of what is today Turkey, to the ancient Greek city of Ephesus. Here stood the Temple of Artemis, a structure so breathtaking that Antipater of Sidon, the poet whose list of wonders is among the most widely cited, declared that when he set eyes upon it, all other wonders faded into nothing. The temple was dedicated to Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, and the moon, and it was one of the largest temples of the ancient world. The version that earned its place among the seven wonders was completed around 550 BCE, sponsored by the fabulously wealthy King Croesus of Lydia. According to the Roman author Pliny the Elder, writing in his Natural History in the 1st century CE, the temple measured roughly 115 meters in length and 55 meters in width, supported by 127 Ionic columns, each standing approximately 18 meters tall. Some of these columns were adorned with sculptural reliefs at their bases, a feature that was highly unusual for Greek temples and spoke to the extraordinary lavishness of the structure. The temple served not only as a place of worship, but also as a marketplace, a gathering hall, and a kind of bank, a center of civic and spiritual life for the entire region. It was famously destroyed by arson in 356 BCE, on the very night, according to legend, that Alexander the Great was born. The arsonist, a man named Herostratus, reportedly set the fire for no reason other than to make his name immortal, and the Ephesians passed a decree forbidding anyone from speaking it, a punishment that obviously did not succeed. The temple was rebuilt after the fire, grander than before, and this later version continued to inspire awe for centuries until it was gradually dismantled and destroyed during late antiquity. Today, only a single reconstructed column stands at the site, rising from a marshy field near the town of Selçuk. It is easy to walk past it and feel nothing, to see only an ordinary column in an ordinary landscape. But close your eyes and let the column multiply, 127 of them, stretching in every direction. Their marble surfaces catching the Mediterranean sun, and you begin to understand what the ancient travelers felt when they arrived, dusty and weary, and saw the home of Artemis gleaming on the horizon like a promise made visible in stone. And now we come to a figure that has captured the imagination of artists and poets for millennia. The statue of Zeus at Olympia, seated in majesty inside the temple built to honor him, in the very sanctuary where the ancient Olympic Games were held. The statue was the work of Phidias, widely regarded as the greatest sculptor of the classical Greek world. Phidias had already overseen the sculptural program of the Parthenon in Athens, including the famous statue of Athena Parthenos, before he was commissioned, sometime around 435 BCE, to create a monumental image of Zeus for the temple at Olympia. The result, according to every ancient source that describes it, was staggering. The seated figure of Zeus was approximately 12 to 13 meters tall, so large that the geographer Strabo, writing in the 1st century BCE, remarked that if Zeus were to stand up, he would have unroofed the temple. The statue was constructed using the chryselephantine technique, a core of wood overlaid with carved ivory panels for the skin and sheets of beaten gold for the robes, the sandals, and the ornamental details. In his right hand, Zeus held a small figure of Nike, the goddess of victory, herself made of ivory and gold. In his left hand, he held a scepter topped with an eagle. His throne was decorated with ebony, ivory, gold, and precious stones, and painted scenes adorned its legs and back. The overall impression was one of overwhelming divine presence. Not merely large, but alive with power and serenity. The Roman general Aemilius Paulus, visiting Olympia in 67 BCE, after his victory at the Battle of Pydna, reportedly declared that Phidias had sculpted the Zeus of Homer himself, as though the sculptor had traveled to Mount Olympus and seen the god in person. The statue survived for roughly 8 centuries before it was likely destroyed, though the exact circumstances remain uncertain. One tradition holds that it was taken to Constantinople in the early 5th century CE and perished in a fire in 475 CE. Whether that account is accurate, we cannot say with certainty. What we can say is that for as long as it stood, the statue of Zeus was not simply an artwork. It was an encounter, a moment in which stone and gold and ivory conspired to make the divine feel near enough to touch. Let that warmth settle over you now, like firelight in a quiet room, as we continue our journey together through the ancient world. We leave Olympia now and travel to the southwestern coast of Asia Minor, to the ancient city of Halicarnassus, known today as Bodrum in Turkey, where one of the most influential tombs in all of architectural history once rose against the Aegean sky. This was the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, built around 350 BCE as the final resting place of Mausolus, a satrap, or regional governor, who ruled Caria on behalf of the Persian Empire, and his wife and sister, Artemisia II. Mausolus had transformed Halicarnassus into a grand capital during his lifetime, and the tomb that followed his death was intended to be the crowning achievement of that vision. According to Pliny the Elder, the structure stood roughly 45 meters tall and was designed by the Greek architects Satyros and Pythias. It consisted of 3 principal sections: a high rectangular podium, a colonnade of 36 Ionic columns forming a covered walkway, and a stepped pyramidal roof crowned by a massive marble chariot sculpture depicting Mausolus and Artemisia being drawn by 4 horses. The building was adorned with sculptural friezes by 4 of the most celebrated sculptors of the age, each assigned one side of the monument: Scopas, Bryaxis, Timotheus, and Leochares. Fragments of these friezes, recovered during 19th century excavations led by the British archaeologist Charles Thomas Newton in 1857, now reside in the British Museum in London, and they depict scenes of battle between Greeks and Amazons with extraordinary dynamism and emotional intensity. The mausoleum stood for roughly 17 centuries before a series of earthquakes, probably in the 13th and 15th centuries CE, brought it down. The Knights of St. John, who controlled the region at the time, used many of the stones to fortify their castle at Bodrum, where some of them can still be seen today, embedded in medieval walls. The legacy of this building, however, extends far beyond its physical stones. The very word mausoleum, used in English and many other languages to describe any grand tomb, derives directly from the name Mausolus. His monument did not simply house the dead, it reshaped the vocabulary of grief and remembrance itself. And so, as the quiet of the night deepens around you, Consider how extraordinary it is that a single building, long since fallen, could leave its name imprinted on every language that followed. Our journey carries us next to the island of Rhodes, one of the largest and most prosperous of the Greek islands, set like a jewel in the warm southeastern corner of the Aegean Sea. It was here, at the entrance to the island's main harbour, that the Colossus of Rhodes once stood, a bronze statue of the sun god Helios that was, for a brief and brilliant span, one of the tallest statues in the ancient world. The Colossus was erected around 280 BCE to celebrate the successful defense of Rhodes against a prolonged siege by the forces of Demetrius Poliorcetes, one of the successors of Alexander the Great, in 305 to 304 BCE. The Rhodians, having repelled the siege, sold the abandoned military equipment left behind and used the proceeds to fund the construction of their monument. The project was overseen by the sculptor Charis of Lindos, a student of the renowned Lysippus, and it took approximately 12 years to complete. Pliny the Elder recorded that the finished statue stood roughly 33 meters tall, about the same height as the Statue of Liberty from heel to crown, though without its pedestal. It was constructed over an iron and stone framework, with bronze plates riveted to the exterior, a technique that anticipated structural engineering principles not fully formalized until much later in history. Despite a popular and persistent image of the Colossus straddling the harbor entrance with ships passing between its legs, there is no reliable ancient evidence for this pose, and modern engineers consider it structurally implausible. Most scholars believe the statue stood with its feet together, perhaps near the harbour, but not spanning it. The Colossus stood for only about 54 years before it was toppled by an earthquake around 226 BCE, snapping at the knees. The Rhodians chose not to rebuild it, reportedly because an oracle advised against it, and the fallen remains lay on the ground for centuries, still drawing visitors who marvelled at their scale. Pliny noted that few people could wrap their arms around the thumb of the fallen statue. According to later sources, the remains were eventually sold as scrap metal around 654 CE. The Colossus was gone, but its memory became a template for every monumental statue that followed, including, many centuries later, the Statue of Liberty, whose designers openly acknowledged their debt to this ancient bronze giant watching over the harbour of Rhodes. Now we come to the last of the 7 wonders to be built, and the last to be destroyed, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, known in antiquity as the Pharos, after the small island on which it stood at the entrance to the harbour of Alexandria, Egypt. This was not merely a lighthouse in the way we might imagine one today, a modest tower with a rotating beam. The Pharos was a skyscraper of the ancient world, a 3-tiered tower that rose to an estimated height of roughly 100 to 130 meters, making it among the tallest structures on Earth at the time of its completion around 280 BCE, during the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus. Its construction had been initiated under his father, Ptolemy I Soter, one of Alexander the Great's generals, who inherited Egypt after Alexander's death. The architect was Sostratus of Cnidus, though some sources suggest he may have been the financier rather than the designer. The tower's 3 sections were distinct in form: a broad square base, an octagonal middle section, and a cylindrical top crowned by a statue, possibly of Zeus or Poseidon, though some accounts suggest it may have depicted Helios or even Ptolemy himself. At the summit, a fire burned continuously, and its light was magnified and directed out to sea by some reflective mechanism, possibly a large polished bronze mirror. Ancient sources claim the light was visible from a distance of roughly 50 kilometers, though modern engineers consider this figure plausible only under ideal atmospheric conditions. The Pharos served as both a practical navigational aid and a powerful symbol of Alexandrian wealth and technological achievement. Alexandria was then one of the largest and most intellectually vibrant cities in the world, home to the Great Library and the Museum, and the lighthouse was its most visible landmark. The tower survived for roughly 17 centuries, gradually damaged by a succession of earthquakes, notably in 956 CE, 1303 CE, and 1323 CE, until it finally collapsed entirely. In the 1990s, the French underwater archaeologist Jean-Yves Empereur conducted extensive surveys of the harbour floor and discovered massive stone blocks and statuary, believed to be remnants of the Pharos, resting silently beneath the waves. The lighthouse had become part of the sea it had guided ships across for more than a millennium. Let that image hold you gently. A light that shone for 1,700 years, now resting quietly in the deep, still guiding our imagination even in the dark. Let us pause here for a moment and consider something that connects all 7 of these wonders. Not their size, or their beauty, or even their ambition, but the simple, astonishing fact that they were conceived at all. Each one of these structures was built with tools that, by modern standards, seem impossibly limited. The ancient Egyptians had no steel, no cranes powered by engines, no computer models or laser-guided measurements. The builders of the Pharos had no reinforced concrete. The sculptors who shaped the Colossus had no electric welding torches. And yet the results they achieved, the precision, the scale, the sheer aesthetic power, rival and in some cases surpass what is produced today. This was not because ancient people possessed some lost and mysterious technology. It was because they possessed something equally powerful: time, patience, communal purpose, and an intimate, hands-on understanding of materials that only comes from working with them every day, generation after generation. Consider the quarrying of limestone for the Great Pyramid. Workers used copper tools, wooden wedges soaked in water to expand and split the rock, and abrasive sand to cut and polish surfaces. These techniques were slow, but they were refined over centuries of accumulated knowledge passed from master to apprentice. Consider the bronze casting required for the Colossus, the careful preparation of clay molds, the precise heating of copper and tin to form the alloy, the pouring at exactly the right temperature to avoid cracks and impurities. These were feats of craftsmanship as much as engineering. Modern archaeology has increasingly moved away from the outdated narrative that ancient builders needed help from some mysterious or supernatural source. The evidence shows us something far more moving, that ordinary human beings, working with extraordinary skill, patience, and collective will, built the extraordinary. That is the real wonder. Not the stone, not the bronze, not the gold, but the human spirit that shaped them. And as your breathing slows now, and the world beyond your window grows quieter, let yourself feel connected to that long line of makers and dreamers, stretching back 5,000 years, all of them working under the same stars you see when you close your eyes. There is another thread that weaves through the story of the 7 wonders, the role of travel itself, and how these structures helped create one of the earliest forms of what we might call tourism. In the Hellenistic world, following the conquests of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BCE, the Mediterranean and the Near East were more interconnected than they had ever been before. Greek became a lingua franca across a vast stretch of territory. From Egypt to the borders of India, trade routes expanded, harbours grew, and with them came a new class of educated travellers: merchants, scholars, diplomats, and simply curious citizens who crisscrossed this expanded world and wrote about what they saw. The lists of wonders that emerged during this period were, in a sense, the world's first travel guides. They told you where to go, what to see, and why it mattered. Antipater of Sidon, writing sometime in the 2nd century BCE, composed a famous epigram listing the 7 greatest sights he knew. And the language he used was not dry or encyclopedic, but passionate, personal, full of awe. He was not writing a textbook. He was writing a love letter to the built world. This impulse, to identify, catalogue, and celebrate the most remarkable creations of human civilization, is one that has never left us. The medieval world had its own lists of wonders. The modern world has UNESCO World Heritage Sites, national landmarks, and bucket lists shared on social media. The form changes, but the underlying desire remains the same: to stand before something greater than ourselves and feel, for a moment, the boundaries of what is possible, expanding outward like a deep breath. The ancient travelers who made the long, arduous journey to see the Colossus or the Pharos or the Temple of Artemis were not so different from anyone today who travels to see the Grand Canyon or the Northern Lights. They were seeking wonder, that particular, irreplaceable sensation of being humbled and uplifted at the same time. And tonight, you do not need to travel anywhere at all. You are already here, resting in the quiet, and the wonders are coming to you, one by one, carried on the gentle current of these words. Let us return now to a question that has lingered in the background of our journey. Why these 7, and not others? After all, the ancient world contained many astonishing structures that did not make the list. The walls of Babylon, for instance, which Herodotus described as being so wide that a 4-horse chariot could turn atop them, were sometimes included in earlier versions of the list, but were eventually dropped. The Great Ziggurat of Ur, the Lion Gate at Mycenae, the Parthenon in Athens, each of these might reasonably have claimed a place among the wonders, and yet they did not. The answer lies partly in geography and partly in cultural perspective. The canonical list of 7 wonders is fundamentally a Greek list, compiled by Greek-speaking authors who lived in or traveled through the Eastern Mediterranean and the Near East. It reflects the world as they knew it, a world that stretched from Egypt to Persia, from the Greek mainland to the coast of Asia Minor, but that did not extend to the far reaches of China, India, or the Americas, where equally remarkable structures were being built during the same centuries. The Great Wall of China, whose earliest sections date to the 7th century BCE, was unknown to the Greek world. The vast stone city of Great Zimbabwe, the temple complexes of ancient India, the stepped pyramids of Mesoamerica, all of these lay beyond the horizon of the ancient Greek traveller. There is no arrogance in this, only the natural limitation of any human perspective. Every civilization sees the world from where it stands. And the Greek list, for all its inevitable narrowness, accomplished something extraordinary. It established the very idea that humanity's greatest physical achievements deserve to be remembered, celebrated, and passed down through generations. It was, in its way, the first declaration that architecture and engineering are not merely practical arts, but forms of cultural memory, ways of speaking across centuries to people who have not yet been born. And in that spirit, the 7 wonders continue to speak to us tonight, their voices gentle and unhurried, crossing the vast distance of time as easily as starlight crosses the dark. Of all the themes that emerge from the 7 wonders, perhaps the most poignant is the theme of impermanence. 6 of the 7 are gone. The Hanging Gardens, if they existed, have left no trace that archaeologists can identify with certainty. The Temple of Artemis was burned, rebuilt, and eventually dismantled. The statue of Zeus vanished, probably in a fire. The mausoleum was shaken apart by earthquakes and its stones repurposed for a medieval fortress. The Colossus fell in an earthquake and lay broken for centuries before being sold for scrap. The lighthouse, that patient guardian of Alexandria's harbour, crumbled piece by piece over 1,700 years until the sea swallowed its remains. Only the Great Pyramid endures, and even it has lost its original smooth white limestone casing, which was stripped away over the centuries and used in the construction of mosques and other buildings in Cairo. These monuments were built to last forever. Their creators intended them to be permanent declarations of power, piety, and beauty. And yet time, that most patient of sculptors, has had its way with nearly all of them. There is something profoundly humbling in this, but also something strangely comforting. If even the greatest structures ever built eventually return to dust and water and scattered stone, then perhaps we can release our own grip on permanence a little, and find peace in the knowledge that everything, every worry, every restless thought, every tension held too tightly, will eventually soften and dissolve, just as the limestone dissolves, just as the bronze returns to earth. The ancient Stoic philosophers, many of whom lived in the same centuries as the 7 wonders, taught that the acceptance of impermanence is not a source of sorrow, but of freedom. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his Meditations in the 2nd century CE, observed that all things are fleeting and soon forgotten, and that even the greatest fame dissolves into the endless river of time. Tonight, let that river carry you. You do not need to resist its current. You do not need to hold on to anything at all. Simply rest and let the wonders of the ancient world dissolve gently into the quiet landscape of your dreams. And yet, if impermanence is one lesson of the 7 wonders, Legacy is another, because although the physical structures may be gone, their influence has rippled outward across the centuries in ways their builders could never have imagined. The word mausoleum, as we discussed, entered the vocabulary of the world because of one tomb in Halicarnassus. The concept of a lighthouse as a civic monument, not merely a functional aid, but a symbol of a city's identity, traces directly back to the Pharos of Alexandria. The tradition of monumental sculpture, of crafting enormous figures in bronze or stone to mark the entrance to a harbour or the heart of a city, runs in a clear line from the Colossus of Rhodes through the centuries to the Statue of Liberty, designed by Frederick August Bartholdi and dedicated in 1886. Even the idea of a curated list of wonders, a canon of humanity's greatest achievements, has shaped the way we think about cultural heritage, leading eventually to institutions like UNESCO and the ongoing effort to identify and protect sites of outstanding universal value. The Seven Wonders were also among the earliest examples of what we might call aspirational architecture, buildings designed not merely to serve a practical purpose, but to express an ideal. The Great Pyramid expressed the Egyptian belief in the continuity of the soul beyond death. The Temple of Artemis expressed the Greek reverence for the divine as something that deserved the most beautiful setting human hands could create. The Hanging Gardens, if they existed, expressed the idea that a ruler's power could be measured not only in armies and conquests, but in acts of tenderness and beauty. These are not small ideas. They are the foundations upon which entire civilizations built their understanding of what it means to be human, to aspire, to create, to leave something behind. And they are ideas that continue to shape us today, even if we have never heard the names Antipater or Phidias or Sostratus. The influence moves through culture like groundwater, invisible, silent, nourishing everything above it. Let that thought settle into the quiet ground of your mind, where the deepest and most important things always grow in silence. Before we let the wonders fully recede into the gentle darkness of approaching sleep, there is one more thing worth considering: the role of memory itself. Every one of the seven wonders, except the Great Pyramid, survives only because someone took the time to write about it. The words of Herodotus, Diodorus, Strabo, Pliny the Elder, Antipater, Philo of Byzantium. These are the vessels that carried the wonders across the centuries after the stones and bronze could no longer carry themselves. Without those written accounts, we would have no knowledge of the Colossus, no understanding of the Pharos, no image at all of the great chryselephantine Zeus seated in his temple at Olympia. Memory, in this sense, is the most enduring building material of all. It outlasts limestone. It outlasts bronze. It outlasts even the patient, eroding touch of earthquakes and fire and the slow chemistry of rust. And your own memory, the one forming quietly inside you right now, is part of this same unbroken chain. When you remember, even dimly, even in the half-lit corridors of a dream, that there once stood a lighthouse in Alexandria, or a garden in Babylon, or a golden god in Olympia, you become a link in a chain that stretches back more than 2,000 years. You carry these wonders forward, just as the ancient writers did, just as the medieval scribes did when they copied those texts by candlelight in monasteries across Europe and the Islamic world. The act of remembering is itself a form of construction. Every time a wonder is recalled, it is rebuilt, however briefly, in the architecture of the mind. And the human mind, for all its fragility, for all its tendency toward forgetting, has proven itself to be the most resilient monument of all. A living structure that rebuilds itself each morning and carries within it the echoes of everything it has ever loved. So as sleep draws nearer and the details of this evening begin to soften and blur at their edges, do not worry about remembering everything perfectly. The wonders do not need perfect recall. They need only a warm and willing mind, and yours has been exactly that tonight. There is a beautiful paradox at the heart of every ancient wonder. Each one was built to assert permanence, to declare that this kingdom, this god, this ruler would endure forever. And yet the very fact that they were chosen as wonders, that they were singled out and celebrated, was because they were already extraordinary in their own time, already standing apart from the ordinary flow of the world. They were, in a sense, always reaching beyond themselves, always pointing towards something larger than their own stones could contain. The Great Pyramid pointed toward the afterlife. The Temple of Artemis pointed toward the divine. The Pharos pointed towards safety and homecoming. The Hanging Gardens, if they were real, pointed toward love itself, toward the desire to make someone feel at home, even in a foreign land. And perhaps this is the deepest lesson the Seven Wonders have to offer. Not as engineering feats, not as historical curiosities, but as mirrors for the human soul. We build because we dream. We dream because we are not satisfied with what is, and we reach, always, toward what might be. Every child who stacks blocks into a tower, every architect who sketches a skyline, every civilization that pours its resources into something astonishing and unnecessary and beautiful. All of them are participating in the same ancient impulse that raised the pyramids and the Colossus and the shining Pharos over the dark harbour of Alexandria. That impulse is not ambition in the cold, calculating sense. It is wonder. The same wonder that the Greek poets felt. The same wonder that has led you to this quiet moment, listening in the dark, allowing your imagination to travel across 25 centuries of human creativity and courage. And now, as the night deepens around you and the ancient monuments begin to fade like distant lights seen through closing eyes, let that wonder be the last thing you carry with you into sleep. Not facts, not dates, not measurements, though these will be there when you wake, but the simple, luminous feeling that the world is full of extraordinary things and that you are part of the long story that made them possible. Consider for a moment the hands that built these wonders, the countless thousands whose names were never carved into any stone, never inscribed on any surviving papyrus. The Great Pyramid alone is estimated to have required a workforce of roughly 20 to 30,000 laborers, organized into teams and rotating in shifts across more than 2 decades of continuous effort. These were not, as older myths once claimed, enslaved people driven by whips, but rather skilled workers, seasonal laborers, and craftsmen who lived in purpose-built villages near the construction site. Archaeologists excavating the workers' quarters at Giza in the 1990s discovered evidence of bakeries, breweries, medical care, and even cattle slaughtered in quantities suggesting a well-fed and organized community. Each of these individuals carried limestone blocks, averaging roughly 2.5 tons, hauled them along ramps whose exact configuration scholars still debate, and fitted them with a precision that remains remarkable by any standard. And yet, these workers left behind almost nothing bearing their individual names. A few graffiti marks scratched into hidden stone surfaces, team names like Friends of Khufu or Drunkards of Menkara, playful and proud, offer the faintest echoes of real human voices across 46 centuries of silence. At the mausoleum of Halicarnassus, the sculptors Scopas, Bryaxis, Leochares, and Timotheus were celebrated even in antiquity, each assigned one face of the great tomb, and yet the apprentices and stonecutters who realized their visions remain entirely anonymous. At the Temple of Artemis, generations of artisans contributed carved column drums, some donated by King Croesus of Lydia himself around 550 BCE, and the temple was rebuilt after an infamous act of arson in 356 BCE, only to be rebuilt grander than before. The wonder, then, was never only the monument itself, but the extraordinary human coordination it represented, the willingness of thousands to labor toward a vision that would outlast every single one of them, a silent agreement that something greater than any individual life was worth the effort of building, worth the aching muscle and the sunburned skin, and the years spent shaping stone into permanence. And perhaps that willingness tells us something essential about the nature of civilization itself, something that these 7 monuments, scattered across the eastern Mediterranean and the ancient Near East, collectively whisper to anyone patient enough to listen. Each wonder was, in its own way, an act of defiance against the ordinary limits of human experience. The Colossus of Rhodes, standing at the harbour entrance of that prosperous island city around 280 BCE, rose to a height estimated at approximately 33 meters, roughly the height of the modern Statue of Liberty from feet to crown. It was constructed from bronze plates fastened to an iron framework, a feat of engineering that the sculptor Chares of Lindos supervised over roughly 12 years before. According to some ancient accounts, the project's pressures overwhelmed him. The statue stood for only 56 years before an earthquake around 226 BCE fractured it at the knees, and the Rhodians, heeding an oracle's warning, chose not to rebuild it. And yet even fallen, even broken, even lying in enormous fragments along the harbor's edge, the Colossus continued to inspire awe for centuries. Pliny the Elder, writing in the 1st century CE, noted that few people could wrap their arms around one of its fallen thumbs. Imagine that, if you will, lying quietly now. Picture a single bronze thumb so vast that your arms could not encompass it. A thumb that once belonged to a figure representing the sun god Helios, gazing out over the brilliant Aegean with hollow eyes that caught the morning light. The ruins of the Colossus reportedly lay undisturbed for nearly 800 years, until, according to later accounts of uncertain reliability, Arab forces sold the bronze remains to a merchant around 654 CE. Whether that final detail is precisely accurate remains debated among historians, but what endures beyond doubt is the power of the Colossus as an idea, a civilization announcing to approaching ships and to the wider world that human ambition could shape metal into something that rivaled the scale of the gods themselves, that ingenuity and civic pride could stand, quite literally, as tall as mythology. Now, let the mind drift gently from bronze to light itself, for the last wonder we have not yet lingered upon may be the most ethereal of all. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, known in the ancient world as the Pharos, was constructed on a small island at the entrance to Alexandria's harbour during the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus. Completed around 280 BCE, roughly the same period when the Colossus rose at Rhodes. Ancient sources describe it as a tower of 3 diminishing tiers, a broad square base, an octagonal middle section, and a cylindrical top crowned by a statue, possibly of Zeus or Poseidon. Its total height has been estimated at somewhere between 100 and 130 meters, making it among the tallest structures in the ancient world after the Great Pyramid. But what made the Pharos truly remarkable was its function. Its purpose not as a tomb or a temple, but as a guide, a beacon of firelight amplified, some ancient writers suggest, by polished bronze mirrors that cast a beam visible to ships far out at sea. Imagine that warm glow reaching across dark Mediterranean waters, a steady pulse of reassurance for sailors navigating by stars and coastline, a signal that said simply, "You are close now, harbour is near, safety awaits." The lighthouse stood for roughly 16 centuries, surviving repeated earthquakes that gradually diminished its height and its structural integrity. The upper sections collapsed first, and by the 14th century, the Arab traveller Ibn Battuta recorded that the structure was so ruined one could no longer enter its doorway. In 1480, the Mamluk Sultan Qaitbay built a fortress on the Pharos site, incorporating some of its fallen stones into the new structure. And that fortress still stands today on the same small island. In the 1990s, underwater archaeologists discovered enormous stone blocks and statuary fragments scattered across the harbour floor near the fortress. Physical evidence of the lighthouse's grandeur resting quietly beneath the waves, patient and unhurried, waiting in the gentle silt as centuries of Mediterranean currents passed softly overhead. There is something deeply comforting in the thought that these wonders, even the ones lost entirely to time, continue to exist as ideas, as patterns etched not in stone or bronze, but in the collective memory of our species. The original list of 7 wonders was itself a kind of dream, a traveller's wish list compiled by ancient Greek writers, most notably attributed to figures like Antipater of Sidon in the 2nd century BCE, and later to Philo of Byzantium, whose authorship of the surviving text remains a matter of scholarly debate. The number 7 was not arbitrary. It held deep significance in the ancient world, associated with completeness, with the known planets of antiquity, with cycles of time that seemed to govern both the heavens and the rhythms of human life. And so 7 monuments were chosen, not because they were necessarily the only marvels, for ancient writers sometimes mentioned alternatives, but because 7 felt like the right number to hold in the mind all at once, a constellation of human achievement bright enough to navigate by. What is remarkable is that this simple list, this ancient act of curation, has endured for over 2,000 years, surviving the collapse of the civilizations that built the wonders it celebrates. We still speak of 7 wonders today. We still organize our admiration around that same ancient framework. And in doing so, we participate in an unbroken chain of wonder that stretches back to the Hellenistic world. The Great Pyramid still stands because granite and limestone are patient materials. But the list itself still stands because awe is a patient emotion, one that does not erode easily, one that passes from generation to generation like a story told at the edge of sleep. And tonight, as you lie still, as your breathing deepens and the world outside grows quiet, you carry that same ancient capacity for wonder within you. The same impulse that once made a Greek traveler pause at the sight of towering marble and reach for words large enough to hold what he felt. That impulse is not diminished by time. It does not require monuments. It lives in the simple act of contemplation, in the willingness to be amazed, in the quiet recognition that the universe and the human story within it are far more extraordinary than we usually allow ourselves to notice. And so we come to a quieter question, one that rises like mist from the ruins of all 7 wonders, and it is this: why did they vanish? Not simply how, for we know the mechanisms well enough, the earthquakes and the fires and the slow, patient dissolution of neglect. But why does the world seem unable to hold on to the things it builds with the greatest care? The Great Pyramid endures, of course, the last survivor, standing in the desert as if time itself decided to spare one example for the ages. But the others fell, each in their own way, each returning to the earth or the sea or the silence from which they had been so boldly summoned. The Temple of Artemis was burned in 356 BCE by a man named Herostratus, who sought fame through destruction, and the ancient world responded by attempting to erase his name from all records, a punishment called damnatio memoriae. And yet his name survived, carried forward by the very historians who condemned him, a paradox that tells us something uncomfortable about the persistence of notoriety. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus stood for nearly 17 centuries before a series of earthquakes brought it low, and its stones were later incorporated into the walls of a Crusader castle, the Bodrum Castle, built by the Knights of St. John in the early 15th century. Consider that. The tomb of a king becoming the fortress of foreign soldiers, its marble lions and carved friezes embedded in defensive walls, beauty repurposed for survival. The Colossus of Rhodes lay fallen for centuries, and ancient sources such as Pliny the Elder noted that even broken on the ground, few people could wrap their arms around one of its thumbs. It was reportedly sold for scrap around 653 CE. Its bronze carried away on the backs of 900 camels, according to the chronicler Theophanes. Whether that figure is precise or embellished by time, the image it creates is striking. A wonder reduced to raw material, measured not in ore, but in cargo loads. These losses are not merely architectural. They are losses of shared memory, of collective aspiration made tangible, and then unmade by the indifferent hands of centuries. But there is a gentler way to understand these disappearances, one that does not mourn the stone, but celebrates the idea. Because the truth is that the 7 wonders were never really about the materials from which they were made. Marble can be quarried again, bronze can be smelted anew. What cannot be replicated, what remains singular and irreplaceable, is the moment of imagining. That first instant when a mind conceived of something that had never existed and believed, against all evidence and all caution, that it could be built. The ancient lists of wonders were not inventories of buildings. They were catalogues of human audacity, each entry a testament to the belief that the world could be shaped by will and vision. The Greek word often translated as wonders is theaumata, meaning things to be seen, or sometimes thaumata, meaning marvels that provoke astonishment. These were not passive monuments to be admired at a distance. They were experiences meant to change the person who stood before them, to widen the boundaries of what that person believed was possible. And in that sense, the wonders never truly disappeared at all. Their physical forms crumbled, certainly, but the ambition they represented passed like a flame from one civilization to the next, inspiring the great cathedrals of medieval Europe, the astronomical observatories of the Islamic Golden Age, the vast temple complexes of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, built beginning in the early 12th century. Each generation inherits not the stones, but the audacity, the quiet insistence that human hands can reshape the earth into something meaningful. Consider how the very concept of a list of wonders endured across millennia. Medieval scholars compiled their own lists, Renaissance thinkers added to them. And in 2007, a global poll organized by the New Seven Wonders Foundation invited millions of people to select new wonders of the world, a project that, whatever its limitations, demonstrated that the human desire to identify and celebrate extraordinary achievement remains as vital today as it was in the age of Antipater of Sidon. The wonders are not gone, they simply changed form, becoming stories, becoming aspirations, becoming the quiet voice that whispers to every architect and dreamer, "Look what has been done before, and imagine what might yet be built." There is something else the wonders teach us, something that reveals itself only when you hold all seven in your mind at once and let them settle, like stars forming a constellation. They were, each of them, acts of profound cooperation. No single person built the Great Pyramid. Herodotus reported that roughly 100,000 laborers were involved. Though modern estimates by archaeologists such as Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass suggest a more likely workforce of approximately 20 to 30,000 skilled workers, organized into rotating crews, housed in a purpose-built village near the Giza Plateau. These were not, as was long believed, enslaved people, but rather paid laborers, bakers, brewers, physicians, and craftsmen who formed a temporary city devoted to a single monumental purpose. The Hanging Gardens, if they existed at Babylon or Nineveh, would have required the coordinated effort of hydraulic engineers, gardeners, masons, and metalworkers, each contributing specialized knowledge to sustain something as delicate as living plants in the arid climate of Mesopotamia. The Statue of Zeus required the collaboration of sculptor and goldsmith, carpenter and gem cutter, each trusting the others with their portion of the whole. Even the Pharos lighthouse, that tower of practical ingenuity, was designed by an architect named Sostratus of Cnidus, but built by the labor of countless unnamed workers who carried limestone blocks up spiraling ramps and polished bronze mirrors to reflect firelight across dark water. What the wonders tell us, when we listen carefully, is that the most extraordinary things humanity has ever created were not the products of solitary genius, but of collective will. They emerged from the shared belief that something beautiful or useful or sacred was worth the immense effort of building it together. And this truth extends far beyond architecture. Every great scientific discovery, every lasting work of art, every civilization that endured long enough to leave its mark upon the earth, was the product of cooperation, of thousands of quiet contributions, adding up, over years and decades, into something greater than any single life could contain. The wonders remind us that we are, at our best, a collaborative species, capable of astonishing things when we choose to build rather than to break. And now, as the mind settles deeper into stillness, let us consider one final dimension of these ancient marvels, one that is perhaps the most intimate of all, their relationship with light. The Pharos lighthouse was, in the most literal sense, a monument to light itself, its flame visible roughly 30 miles out to sea according to ancient accounts, a warm point of safety burning against the darkness of the Mediterranean night. But light shaped the other wonders too, in ways their builders understood with quiet sophistication. The interior chambers of the Great Pyramid were aligned with extraordinary precision, and small shafts in the King's Chamber point toward specific regions of the sky, possibly toward the star Thuban, which served as the pole star during the Pyramid Age around 2560 BCE, and toward the belt of Orion, associated with the god Osiris. Light and shadow danced across the statue of Zeus in his temple at Olympia, where Phidias arranged the proportions so that the seated figure seemed almost too large for the building, as if the god might stand and break through the ceiling, a deliberate illusion amplified by the way lamplight played across the ivory and gold surfaces. The Colossus of Rhodes would have caught the first light of dawn rising over the Aegean Sea. Its bronze skin blazing copper and gold against the morning sky, a sight that arriving sailors described with reverence. Even the hanging gardens, if they were real, would have been a study in how sunlight filters through living green, the way leaves scatter brightness into soft emerald patterns, the way water catches and fractures light into 1,000 tiny mirrors. These builders understood something that modern science has confirmed, that light is not merely illumination, but information, not merely brightness, but meaning. The way a structure interacts with light determines how it feels, how it breathes, how it speaks to the human soul. And so as you rest here in your own gentle darkness, perhaps you can sense a kinship with those ancient architects. For you too understand instinctively that the softest light is often the most comforting. That darkness is not emptiness, but a canvas upon which the mind paints its deepest and most restful dreams. Perhaps the most remarkable dimension of these 7 wonders is not what they were, but what they became in the minds of those who never saw them. For centuries after the last traveller's account was written, after the final stone had toppled and the bronze had been carried away, the wonders lived on as ideas, as seeds planted in the fertile darkness of human aspiration. A merchant in medieval Baghdad, reading a translated fragment of Antipater's poem, would close his eyes and imagine the Colossus standing at the mouth of a harbour he had never visited, its bronze skin catching a sun that had set more than 1,000 years before. A Renaissance architect in Florence, studying the proportions described in ancient texts about the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, would feel something stir within him, a conviction that beauty could be engineered, that stone could be made to speak a language older than any empire. This is the quiet miracle of the wonders, this ability to cross not merely distance, but time, to reach forward through the centuries and tap a stranger on the shoulder and whisper, "Look what we once dared to build." And in that whisper, something extraordinary would happen. The stranger would not simply admire what had been. The stranger would begin to dream of what might yet be. The great cathedrals of Europe, with their soaring vaults and impossible buttresses, owe a debt to the memory of the Temple of Artemis, even if that debt was never consciously acknowledged. The engineers who conceived of the Suez Canal carried within them, somewhere deep in their cultural inheritance, the echo of a lighthouse that once guided ships through the darkness of the Mediterranean. Every generation that learned of the 7 wonders absorbed a fundamental lesson, that the boundary between the possible and the impossible is not fixed, that it is a line drawn in sand, and that with sufficient courage, sufficient ingenuity, and sufficient willingness to labour under the weight of an enormous dream, that line can always be redrawn a little further out. This is, perhaps, the truest wonder of all. Not the monuments themselves, but the permission they gave to every civilization that followed. And so, as we draw near to the end of this quiet journey through the ancient world, let us hold one last image in the mind before sleep carries us away. Imagine that you are standing on the shore of the eastern Mediterranean, roughly 2,300 years ago, on a night when the air is warm and the stars are so thick above you that the sky itself seems to hum with light. Behind you lies the known world, its cities and farms and harbours, its roads and rivers, its countless lives unfolding in ways both ordinary and extraordinary. And before you, out across the dark water, you can see a single point of golden light, steady and unwavering. It is the Pharos lighthouse, standing on its island at the mouth of the harbour of Alexandria, its flame reflected in the gentle movement of the sea. You do not know, standing there, that this lighthouse will one day fall, that earthquakes will bring it down stone by stone over the course of centuries, that its remains will eventually lie beneath the waves, where divers will rediscover them in the 1990s. You know none of this. All you know, in this moment, is that someone, somewhere, cared enough about the safety of strangers to build a tower of light in the darkness. And that single fact, that simple act of reaching out across the distance between one human life and another, is enough. It is enough to remind you that the world, for all its vastness and indifference, is not empty of kindness. It is not empty of purpose. Somewhere, someone is always tending the flame. And as that thought settles into you, As the warmth of it spreads slowly through your chest and down through your limbs, you can feel the weight of the day beginning to lift, the way mist lifts from a harbour at dawn. The wonders were never really about stone or bronze or marble. They were about the light we carry for one another, the quiet insistence that even in a world of impermanence, some things are worth building, worth remembering, worth passing gently from one dreaming mind to the next. So the journey ends, as all journeys do, in stillness. The Great Pyramid stands silent under the Egyptian stars. The harbour of Rhodes is dark and calm. The waters of Alexandria rest over the scattered stones of the Pharos, keeping their patient watch. Somewhere, in the green hills of a land that may have been Nineveh or Babylon, the memory of a garden lingers like the scent of rain on warm earth. You have travelled tonight through thousands of years and thousands of miles, and you have not moved at all. That is the gift of the imagination. It carries you everywhere and asks nothing in return except your willingness to listen. Let your body grow heavy now. Let your thoughts become soft and formless, and allow the ancient wonders to become part of the landscape of your sleep. Distant, luminous, as enduring as starlight, as gentle as the breath that carries you into the deep and quiet dark. If this journey brought you a little closer to rest, consider leaving a gentle note in the comments about which wonder you would most like to have seen with your own eyes. Thank you for spending your night with Let's Learn While You Sleep. Subscribe and come back tomorrow night. We'll be here. Sleep well.